Today, they found the bodies of at least 3 young boys.
Found 6 more bodies under the John Gacy house.
Young paper boys discovered what appeared to be the latest victim.
The worst mass murders in American history.
Dean Corll.
Charles Manson.
The Zodiac Killer.
The Son of Sam.
Ted Bundy.
The Hillside Strangler.
It's frightening. That's the only word I can use. Frightening.
People did not find me attractive or likable. I compensated for it by being seemingly aloof and arrogant and intellectual.
That's when he told me, and I think the only person he told was that the first person he killed was a young boy when they were playing some kind of sex game in the woods. And so he must have been only 12, 13, or 14. I didn't go into a lot of detail because I didn't need to or want to.
There really are no clues, no theories as to the disappearance of the girls.
It's unreal, and it's a nightmare, and nothing in anybody's manual would prepare you for something like this.
Georgianne Hawkins was last seen Monday evening shortly after midnight.
She didn't show up for the final. I talked to the professor the next day, and he said he was really surprised that she didn't show up.
What do you got there, Bob?
Some more bones so far.
Jawbones, as a matter of fact, aren't they?
Well, one kind of looks like a jawbone, yes.
Got teeth in it?
Yeah.
The word is that both you and Seattle police are proceeding on the assumption that there are more bodies out here, that perhaps maybe even all of the girls might be here. Is that a heroic assumption?
Well, that probably is.
Both of them could have been prevented. The one had been forewarned, the first one.
It's been 4 days since the FSU murders occurred, and the mood, both on campus and here in this usually peaceful city, is still one of apprehension.
Bundy had reached out, not to me, but through this kind of chain of people, saying that, he may have been ready to go on trial for his life in Florida, but he was in fact an innocent man, and that he had been the victim of this monstrous, not right-wing, but just general conspiracy, and that he wanted to tell his story to a reliable journalist, and in return for telling me or whoever it turned out to be what the real story was, that he wanted his cases all reinvestigated. So I recruited a colleague of mine named Hugh Ainsworth, and I said, Hugh, if you go back out to the West Coast and go look at all these cases, I'll go talk to Bundy and we'll see what we've got. And that's how the whole project started.
Let's talk about, some of these crimes they suspected you of. And I said, well, I can't really talk about them. Well, how do you want to do it? And they said, well, let's figure out some way we can talk about it. And we sat here and negotiated on how are we going to do this. And it wasn't any deception involved at all. It was very deliberate. And they said, well, how about if we do it this way? Then I said, well, I'm going to continue to maintain my innocence, but we can do it based upon what I've read, I would speculate that this would be what might have happened. Okay.
Third person type of thing, is it?
Yeah, and it wasn't I'm going to talk in the third person. It was I'm going to speculate about what I've read and do the same thing the police would do, if they were trying to figure out what happened.
Reconstruct crimes, basic investigative strategy, right?
Right. And so that's basically what happened. They would say, okay, what do you think happened at Lake Sammamish? I said, well, first of all, I don't know what happened. And then we go into this law, and they said, well, we don't like that because we read something and that doesn't really fit with what the police know. I said, well, how if we do it? Okay, we'll do it this way. Okay. And I swear, if you actually sat down and listened to their tapes, you would hear a lot of this nonsense. Okay, and what I've got to tell you, I want you to be clear, is that was not a nice thing to do. First of all, money makes people do things which are sometimes not right, and I think part of the problem with that was the money. And you put your finger on it, making money, especially off of this kind of thing, is really wrong, and I could never do it again, because it just, when you get in this kind of thing for profit, just too many bad things happen. And it should, because you shouldn't be doing it. And it was wrong for us to sit here and coldly do what we did, because there are a lot of people out there who read this kind of stuff. And it just didn't work, and it felt bad all the way along. And I look back on it as a learning experience. But I would just rather not say anything anymore than engage in that kind of cruel kind of speculation. And it was just a game, and it was wrong for us both, all of us, to do it.
Became a bestseller.
Huh?
Became a bestseller. It's going to make a hell of a
Well, we did correctly, I guess, anticipate the baser desires of people who oftentimes buy these books, who want to be titillated, or who want to be, have their prurient interests indulged. There are people who read these books for genuine reasons too, and unfortunately, I think more often than not, they're misled if that's what they're looking for, because whoever has read any of these books does not know anything about me or what really happened. And I don't say that with any sense of being smug or anything. That's just the way it is.
Well, you're an individual. How many people really know other people as well as you know yourself?
Sure.
There have been other people who have written books who contend that they've known you prior to any alleged criminal involvement, and that they feel that they know Ted Bundy. What are your thoughts on that?
But
they really have.
To that, to the extent that
I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, they had an opportunity to, and they certainly had genuine access.
At the crisis clinic, he would walk me to my car at 4 a.m. and say, "Ann, be sure the door is locked because I don't want anything to happen to you on the way home."
What was he like?
He was the perfect young man, empathetic, sympathetic, ambitious, the kind of man that if I had been 10 years younger or my daughter's 10 years older, I would have thought this is the perfect man for a mate for life. We worked together for a year, 2 nights a week, very close friends. We stayed close friends for many years.
Why did you suspect he could be the Seattle serial killer as you looked into that case?
Resemblance to the composite picture that was drawn from Girls in the Park. Proximity. I knew where girls had been raped and murdered because of my job, and Ted lived 2 blocks away in many cases. And then coincidences. I knew he sometimes sounded Canadian. I knew he played racquetball. I knew things about him, but then I thought, no, it couldn't be. I was shocked because he had never had a car. I used to take him to parties and bring him home drunk and give him to his landlady because he didn't have a car. I called just to ease my mind, and instead I got the word that, yes, indeed, Ted Bundy is registered with a 1968 bronze Volkswagen Bug.
She's, in her own way, under certain conditions, a very nice person. I have no animosity toward her, but there's no question that she grossly overplayed what was a passing acquaintance. And all we did was have our shifts at a call-in crisis clinic. Oh, I remember. No, I remember very clearly. But she had absolutely no basis to write a book the way I understand she did, or claim that that in her own way she knew me. It would be like if you were to have a co-worker and you would work beside them for a couple hours a day for 6 months, and then they would go away, and then they would write a book all about you. That's what happened with that person wouldn't know you anymore. Now, whether or not when she sat down to write her memoirs, she put in there the way it really was, because you see, by the time she wrote the book, the Ted Bundy she was confronted with, at least in the public consciousness, was something different. So I think a lot of people, former friends and even relatives, are a little bit leery. Did I really know him? And maybe their perceptions of me will change. You've seen this. Well, yeah, I saw that in him. I could tell when he was 5 years old, because people don't want to feel like they've been fooled, or people don't want to feel like they've known someone and yet they didn't know him. And so they'll figure out all sorts of things to say, well, I could tell that he was capable of that because you didn't open the door for me one time.
You didn't kick the cat.
You kicked the cat. There's this one